This is Doug Scheiding, the Rogue Cookers, Texas embedded correspondent. You're listening to the Barbecue Central Show.
Start the game! Let's go!
We'll do it live. Okay. Well, do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live!
So to get that perfect barbecue, you use wood. Are you sure it's safe? Whatever. We put the lighter fluid on, strike your match, and... Oh! Should we call the fire department? That might be a good idea.
Good evening and welcome to the Really Big Barbecue Central Show. This is the show that talks about all things that are important in the world of barbecue and grilling. This show originating from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame city, Bomb City, USA, Cleveland, Ohio. The barbecue capital of the North Coast. I'm your program host, Greg Rempe. Happy to have you aboard here on your Tuesday evenings. A live fire, fun, and frivolity show. If you'd like to get in contact with the show this evening, or you'd like to follow the show during off-show hours, here's how you do that.
You can get in touch with the show by sending an email to Greg at bbqcentralshow.com. Follow us on all the social media channels at BBQ Central Show. And be sure to subscribe to the show podcast feed on your favorite podcast platform.
Anything else you want to find out about the show can be found at the main website, thebbqcentralshow.com. And here's what's happening in case you can get the newsletter coming up in about 12 minutes from now. It's been a few moments since the last time we got education and inside scoop from the Barbecue Central Show's exclusive cigar expert from the Cigar Authorities podcast and Two Guys Smoke Shop retail outlet in New Hampshire. Mr. Jonathan will join us 9:14, and he has been in the green room ready to go, so we'll see him here in just a few short moments listening to all the illegal music before we actually streamed over the internet and then played the very lame copyright-free music as you typically hear as you join in through each and every chat room and listen to that music streaming before we get going each show. And then after Mr. J, we will talk to a new guest, somebody looking to change the snack industry and add a little smoky goodness while doing it. Fellow by the name of Jared Drinkwater from lowandslow.com. Right here we have hickory smoked potato chips, and here we have hickory smoked corn barbecue chips. So if you're into corn chips, if you're into barbecue flavored potato chips, look, all cards on the table, and I'll tell Jared this in about a half an hour. I hate barbecue potato chips. His is something a little bit different, and that's why we're having him on. If it was just like your standard Lay's piece of crap barbecue potato chip, we're probably not having that interview here on this show, but it's a little something different, something within the scope and purview that the show typically carries. And he was introduced to me by a friend as well, so all those things coming together in a confluence of positivities. And Jared Drinkwater makes his debut on the show 35 past the first hour. And then we will go to the second hour, where we will find the fourth Tuesday of the month of the second hour, embedded correspondents joining us. That's right. You know what that means? We have a laundry list of 100% assurity questions that we will get through. And then with the time remaining, we have some other topics that we'll look to get a little bit more in depth with instead of the yes or no answers that we do with the 100% assurity questions. So that's how the show is laying out here tonight. Mr. J and Jared Drinkwater, first hour, embedded correspondent, second hour. Don't forget, you can follow me socially, Instagram, X, TikTok, Snapchat, and LinkedIn, all at the handle at BBQ Central Show. And of course, we say good evening to those of you watching tonight through one of our video streaming platforms. You can go to facebook.com/BBQ Central Show or twitter.com/BBQ Central Show. You can also watch the show where most of you do on YouTube, which is youtube.com/@BBQ Central Show. And we have a new YouTube poll question of the week. We're asking everybody this. You're going to watch the newest season of Barbecue Showdown on Netflix, and currently 73% of you are saying yes. You are going to watch that show. Results of last week's poll: would you buy the solar-powered unit that Ritzworks was making for pellet cookers? 63% of you said no, you are not going to buy that, but almost 40% of you said that you will. So pretty close to 50-50. That's usually where I see questions lining up here over the last handful of months, right around even. And we'll see how this particular question plays out tonight, asking all guests and, of course, anybody watching through YouTube. So we'll start here tonight, and I didn't get to it last week because I had something that was even more pressing than this. But much like Smoke Slam and Memphis in May were weekly news generators for much of last year, of course, beginning of this year, we have a new one, and it's a bit outside the normal live fire stuff you would typically hear about on the show. However, there are some times to the show where things can't be ignored. This being the most prolific competitive eater ever, Joey Chestnut. You might recall that a few weeks ago, the biggest story across the country was Joey Chestnut being banned from the July 4th hot dog eating contest. Well, a week later, so last week, more news revealed all of a sudden. This seems to be something of a well thought out and perhaps highly executed plan. And what do I mean by that? Thursday, a week ago, Joey, along with Netflix and some other social accounts, post about an impending hot dog eating contest to be aired live on the Netflix between said Joey Chestnut and none other than Takeru Kobayashi. Yes, the matchup you have all been waiting for. I mean, maybe nobody's been waiting for this matchup. Maybe nobody even cares to see this happen, but the people at Netflix thought it was good enough to put together. So Joey and Kobayashi seem to think it's worth their while to do it, and so it will be done. The biggest head-to-head eating contest of all time. So while Joey is still banned, as we sit here June 25th of 2024 and roughly a week outside of the main hot dog eating event of the year, there's probably a much bigger payday and publicity event coming on this Netflix contest. And who would have thought that this is something we would see on Netflix? I know Tyson and Logan Paul drawing lots of interest. Of course, everyone wants to see Tyson go old school Tyson, put Logan Paul to sleep. I think the hot dog eating contest is actually more compelling. Tyson is old. Logan Paul, not a real boxer. It's almost a lose-lose to a certain degree, depending on who wins. When it comes to the hot dog contest, the only question I have is, has Kobayashi been doing his training the past 15 years? Has he been down in the basement like a madman, pounding glizzies as the day is long? Remember, the last time he was supposed to eat in Brooklyn, there was a cloud of controversy, and then he pulled out of the event. Joey has not relinquished control since. Now, assuming Kobayashi is in top eating shape, whatever that means, we could see a great eating event. Plus, this can be done in weather-controlled environments, ensuring that no outside factors need to be accounted for. We could see 80-plus Schweens and buns going down one or both of these guys' gullets. The more I'm talking about it, the more excited I'm getting. If you only had the option of watching one event, which would it be? Would it be the boxing event between Tyson and Paul, or is it the eating match between Kobayashi and Joey Chestnut? Let me know what you think. That's the unofficial YouTube poll question of the week, but I am so excited. Remember, there have been plenty of times over the last handful of years when Brooklyn has been hot and humid, and Joey has made specific reference to the fact that he doesn't think he's going to be in a world record type environment because it's too hot and too humid. And somehow that stymies his wiener intake. In this instance, air conditioning, no wind, just counters. You could have a large studio audience well away from you so you're not feeling the tens of thousands of people on you like you do in Brooklyn. Totally controlled. I could see 80 plus. That's a number I never thought I would say out loud, but given what could happen in this event, we'll see. Now, also, I know that the Tyson Paul thing has been put off because, look, Tyson's old. He's got injured. We'll see if it actually comes to fruition, but I'll be looking for your thoughts as we work through the show. Would you rather see the boxing event on Netflix or the eating event on Netflix? As we know, Mr. J is in the green room. He's ready to rock and roll. We'll talk to him here in just one moment. Before we do that, we talk about our pals at Winners Products. The Members Mark Grill, the Pro Series Members Mark Grill, both a 5-burner and a 4-burner. Say hello to the future of grilling with their patented thermostatic control technology. 2 cooking modes that allow you to cook the way you want. First up, barbecue mode. The traditional grilling experience with variable temperatures, giving you control at each burner to adjust exactly the way you want it to on your terms. Or you can then change to the oven mode. Simply set the thermostatic control dial and your desired temperature. Your grill transform into a precision oven. The choice is yours. Members Mark Pro Series with the thermostatic control now available at your local Sam's Club store. And as I've been telling you over the last couple weeks, I have found myself going to this grill on purpose as a man who has plenty of different cooking vessels and plenty of different fuel types to choose from and can have them all going at one time if I want. The last handful of times, I'm going to the Members Mark Pro Series grill. The stainless is sexy. The build is great. Heavy-duty grill grates, of course. So 3-4 days ago, it was a pair of pork tenderloins. I went immediately to oven mode, 250 for about 25-30 minutes. And then we went into grill mode, specifically to lay a sear at the very end. Brought them up to the internal temperature of 140 degrees. Got everything else ready. They probably rose up to around 145 or so. Perfection. So convenient, so easy to use, and again, only available at your local Sam's Club store. So if you're not a member, you will have to become a member, or you just go to your neighbor's house and steal their Sam's Club card, and then buy the Members Mark Pro Series grill. Again, all stainless steel 5-burner. They do have a 4-burner option, not all stainless. But either one of them have that patented technology on there, and you don't have to plug anything in. Simple as that. We are back with our pal, Mr. Jonathan, to talk a little premium hand-rolled cigar action. Stick around. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Barbecue Central Show. Broadcasting live from the Barbecue Central Show studios in Cleveland, Ohio. You're listening to the Barbecue Central Show. Once again, here's your host, Greg Rempe.
This portion of the show being brought to you by CookinPellets.com, your number one source for quality wood pellets for all your pellet-driven cookers. You visit CookinPellets.com. You can see everything that they have to offer from a product standpoint. And then when you're ready to buy, what do I tell you? Go to Amazon.com, go to Lowe's.com, or go to Walmart.com. Same great options to choose from for purchase. Even better shipping rates, if you can believe it. Trust me, I know. My first guest tonight, a well-known figure in the cigar community, one of the co-hosts of the very popular Cigar Authority podcast. Here to talk about the latest news, trends in the cigar industry, the Barbecue Central Show's official cigar expert. We welcome back our pal, Mr. Jonathan, to the show. Mr. J, great to have you. And we have a YouTube poll question of the week that we're asking everybody tonight. You are going to watch the newest season of Barbecue Showdown on Netflix, yes or no?
I don't have Netflix, sorry.
And it's a no.
It's a no.
If you did have Netflix, would you even care?
I would watch it if I had Netflix. I don't have TV or Netflix, so just internet. I watch a lot of YouTube videos. So I guess going back to your last segment, I'm probably in on the Tyson Logan Paul fight. And if Logan Paul was not a child star and not a YouTuber, he'd still be a top 10 contender in his weight class. And he's one hell of a promoter, which can do the most important thing in boxing, which is get butts in the seats.
We're gearing up for some barbecue TV to hit the boob tube on various platforms. Obviously, you're not going to be watching all that like we just mentioned. Okay, I'm not going to pull the curtain back, but I see something that you've just done here. So, nevertheless, what's smoking well in the shop tonight, Mr. J?
We just got the launch of the HVC Hotcakes fresh out of the oven broadleaf. I smoked it today in two sizes, a Toro and a Torpedo. They're both 5.5 inches long. The Toro's 54 ring gauge and the Torpedo is a 52. Sensational. It was the most hyped product to come out for 2024. We've been hearing about it since November, December of last year that it was coming.
Wow.
And I was honestly nervous about smoking it because when something has that much hype, 8 months of hype, how could it possibly be as good as the hype? And it turned out it was better than the hype.
Was that a lot of internal hype? Because few are as big a fans as the Cigar Authority podcast than me as I'm listening to it every Monday as I get my morning workout in. And I don't remember any of you guys talking about it on the weekly. Was that more outside of show, Scuttlebutt?
Certainly outside of the show, Scuttlebutt. It's something that gets talked about in the shop. We've had Rene Lorenzo up a few times working on some projects and smoking sample after sample as he kind of dialed in that blend. It just was something that was certainly on our radar too, guys. But I know that lots of shops clamoring for it. So those will be selling probably as soon as Monday.
I'm a big fan of HVC Hotcakes Traditional, the darker,
the regular hotcakes is
regular
fire.
Hotcakes. So tell me if you can, and especially for the novice palate that's out there as we bring them along, if they have had the normal HVC or the traditional, how does the broadleaf differ?
So the HVC regular hotcake is a lot of high priming tobacco. It's maybe a 7.5 out of 10 in strength. And then you have the HVC Golden Line hotcake, which is a Connecticut version that comes in at about a 4. And the broadleaf splits the difference in the strength, but it has such a great balance of a little bit of sweet chocolate note, a little bit of black pepper, and just maybe some baking spices in there. I've only smoked it twice, so I to really dive in, I've got to get 3 or 4 under my belt.
What's the difference between a Bellicoso and a Torpedo?
That's a great question. There is no difference. It's what the manufacturer decides to call it. Technically, if you really go back to old Cuban sizes, a Bellicoso would be a short or would be called a Rothschild if it wasn't torpedo tipped. So a Bellicoso is typically a smaller version and a Torpedo is typically about 6 inches long. It's a Toro size with the torpedo tip.
All right. What else?
But at this point, anything goes in the cigar industry.
What else is smoking good these days?
I'm smoking it right now. The JFR Lunatic Firecracker. I bought 3 boxes myself. This is the box I bought to smoke. This is the 3rd box. The other 2 I'm going to lay down because this cigar is going to stand up to age. And I think the last time I was on, I talked about McAuliffe Black Toro. I'm still smoking those. And Garofalo Maduro Epicure. We got a program going on with the staff where if you arrive at work 15 minutes early, you get a special deal on some of the house brand stuff. And the Garofalo is ours. Dave Garofalo owns Two Guys Smoke Shop. I've overlooked the Maduro for so long. I smoked it when it first came in, and it was fine. And I've been revisiting it, and it is lights out good right now for around $10.
How long has it been out?
18 months.
How does it? So do you miss it, or like are you not appreciating it over 17 months, and on the 18th month something changes, or does something change in the cigar? Does age help it along?
No, what ends up happening is I get into a loop. So I've been in a loop for about 24 months of smoking sun-grown tobacco and kind of staying away from Maduro, because a lot of people are, I hate to say it, but they're tainting the Maduro. They're dyeing it, or they're applying something to the wrapper to make it perform differently or look different. And so I kind of have shied away from Maduros. And with the release of McAuliffe Black, which is a Maduro, it's so great. And I just said, you know what? I'm going to smoke this Garofalo Maduro, and it was better. It's awesome.
What brands are faking Maduro? I want to know that, because I want to buy that. That seems like it's cheating.
I can't get myself into that kind of trouble. I do appreciate the question, and I can certainly tell you off air. You could send me a text.
Is it more pervasive than we would know?
It's more prevalent in the cigar industry. There's a couple of ways to fake it. You can steam the Maduro, which is sort of a natural way of doing it. You can steam the wrappers and they turn black. You can rub the wrappers, which LFD says right out of the gate they do on their Oscuro line. They rub the wrapper and bruise it, and that causes that brindle effect. And then there's rotting the stems in a bucket. Stems contain high nicotine, and which I'm not into super strong cigars. So they rot the stems in a bucket, and they can put under-fermented tobacco in that bucket and dye the wrapper with a natural tobacco dye. And then there's also other games that larger companies play, especially with cheap Maduros. If a Maduro is under $3 and you're finding it online and it's dark as night, it's tainted. Those that usually have mineral oil or Vaseline on the outside wrapper. They finish the cigar with that.
Is that dangerous to me?
Probably.
All right. Well, good news. I'm going to be texting you a little later. I'm getting all the names of people that I will not be buying cigars from. Easy enough. I don't have a lot around me, and you're somebody that is on the day-to-day inside of not only cigar retail, but then you also have a lounge area where somebody can come in, peruse the humidor, grab one out, and if they are so inclined, they can sit down in the lounge space of two guys that enjoy the cigar and strike up camaraderie. And there's really nothing better than finding a great lounge. There's one not too far away from me, just on the skirts of Willoughby where I live. I want to like it. It appears to be, pardon my French, a shithole. It looks bad. You walk into the place and it smells like really bad, like every stereotypical thing why people would hate cigars. That's what it smells like when you go in. Humidor selection isn't actually bad. What makes a great lounge and what makes a shit lounge?
The better lounges are going to look after the ash, which is 90% of that bad odor. If you've ever left a cigar that you were smoking in the ashtray in the car and you come back the next morning, it reeks in the car. If you were to take that cigar and not leave it in the car and close the ashtray, the next morning you might not even remember you smoked in the car. So the ash is the number one thing. If they can clean the ash out, and we have a protocol where every 30 minutes someone's got to walk through the lounge and we get the ash out. Air filtration with the easiest way to do it is with a dump system, but then you end up running into problems with air conditioning and heating, being able to maintain the temperature. So a good smoke mitigation which has fresh air intake and can help to mix the air after it's been filtered. Again, you're trying to remove ash particulate out of the air. It's not the smoke itself. The smoke from a cigar is awesome. It smells like money. Well, to me, it smells like money. But the smoke itself is one of the things that's appealing to a cigar. So it's not the smoke, but you've got to get that ash out of the air. And that's what separates a good lounge from a not so good lounge, is keeping up on your filters and being able to filter that ash out of the air and keep it out of the ashtrays.
If I'm walking out of a lounge and I get into the car and I'm offending myself with my stink, that should be clue number one that they just don't care.
They either don't care or they don't know.
I mean, you have to know. They have to get in their own cars and be offended too.
you sort of you get comfortable in the filth, I guess. I mean, I know we have some lounges up here. Listen, the guys that own the lounges are awesome, but I don't want to go in the lounge because that's where COVID started.
Yeah.
They're so disgusting. So you gotta own a vacuum and a dry mop, and you've got not a lot of carpets everywhere. The less carpets, the better, and bare floors, and you get the ash up and out, and you're okay.
When it comes to cigar selection for lounges, and we could look into doing a whole how to start your own cigar lounge someday if people even cared to do that. I think would probably be a little too far in the weeds with my clientele here, but what kind of a selection should I be looking for to gauge how good a cigar retailer is?
A good retailer is going to have a selection in a range between, say, $5 and $75, and they'll have several choices at each price point between, say, $5 and $30, and they may have one or two high-priced items. You know, there's certain brands that can command a price like $75. Davidoff is one. Byron is another. You certainly can, if there's a good enough reason why you're charging the money, and the staff should be able to explain that to you, not just, oh, it's delicious, I like it. All right. There's plenty of cigars out there that are very expensive that are not very good. And we'll get into the pricing of cigars later on with another one of your questions. But you want to have a good variety of, say, 5 or 6 cigars at each $5 price point, from $5 to $30. And the cigar shop should have a couple of high-priced, high-ticket items for what if you're celebrating a birthday or a wedding anniversary or anything. You want to have something that is a little more pricey than what you'd normally spend on yourself, or maybe someone's buying you a gift and they want to show their appreciation, get you something really nice. And there is a difference between a $75 cigar and a $5 cigar if the cigar was cared for properly.
Let's take that a little deeper as far as price, because I think much like going to a high-end steakhouse, if you're going to pay $75 for a steak or $100 for a steak at a Morton's or one of these other high-dollar steak joints across the country, or an independent one like St. Elmo, there's an expectation that it's going to be a unique experience. I think people would also have the same expectation if they're spending towards $100 on a single cigar. Would you say, by and large, that cigars that are $75 plus have that QPR or quality price ratio, or will they tend to fall short?
This particular $75 cigar that I carry in my shop is a Byron, and it's 9 inches long. So if you were to take the Poema size in the same brand family, it's only 4.5 inches. So you're almost 3 times the length, and you're only 3 times the price. So from a dollar cost averaging standpoint, if you like the way Byron performs and you like the way it tastes, being able to smoke it for 3 hours, worth the price. I would say most times when you get into the multiples, so you go from a 5 to a 10, you're definitely doubling up. When you go from 10 to 20, you're only about half again. When you go from 20 to 40, you're half again, and so on. And so you end up with that law of diminishing returns. When you get to a point where you're at $100 on a cigar, there isn't a cigar worth $100 in my opinion.
Do you see second half trends going one way or the other in the industry, or what are you prognosticating?
Cigar makers, and I think you asked a similar question a couple times ago. Cigar makers are starting to get into lower priced, higher quality cigars. So they're going to give you an awful lot for not a lot to be able to shock the market. And we call this the McAuliffe effect on the Cigar Authority. McAuliffe came out with, when everyone else was coming out with $100 cigars, McAuliffe launched a $7 Robusto and an $8 Toro. They ended up getting Cigar of the Year. The volume is beyond anything I've ever seen for any Cigar of the Year in the 13 years I've been in the industry, 15 years on the show. So, for example, Rocky Patel came out with a $100 cigar last year. Abysmal failure. And this year he plans to come out with a $7 cigar in time for the New England Cigar Expo. I believe that's the soft launch for that product. So there'll be 1,000 people smoking it at the expo. Romacraft reworked a few of their blends with different wrappers, and they managed to keep all their prices under $10. This is the trend, is now how much value can we pack into a sub $10 cigar is where the industry is going to head.
Trying to figure out the last question I want to ask you tonight as time evaporates. Let's go to the JRE question because they're a sponsor of the show, makers of Aladino. I haven't gotten my mitts on them yet because one of them is just starting to ship out. I think the other one hasn't even launched yet, technically, but they have a Cameroon Puro. They call it the Cameroon Reserva, not to be confused with their Corojo Reserva. Something you've tried, and if so, what do we think?
It's exceptional. I do think they are pushing the envelope with the $22 price point. That said, Cameroon is very delicate, and even though they're growing in Honduras and they're partnered with Bear Systems and they really have everything dialed in, shit, if they can grow Corojo, they could probably grow anything. So the Cameroon is such a low yielding plant, even in Honduras under those conditions. That's the reason the price point is as high as it is. It is a great cigar, and it is definitely worthy of that birthday level, anniversary level. You're celebrating something. You might even say you get a box and you hold on to it for when the occasion presents itself. But it's very, very good.
This is a cigar that if you bought the box could lay down for a bit as well, so you could smoke one a year for the next handful of years?
For sure. Yeah, their stuff performs extremely well in long-term aging.
Justo said in one of his videos he wasn't necessarily aware of a Cameroon Puro like they have produced. Do you know of one on the market?
There was a cigar put out by the Mirafelds, who are famous for growing Cameroon in Cameroon, Africa. I believe their factory's in Germany. $86 Robusto with a gorgeous ashtray as the box. And it tasted like it was, at the very least, mostly Cameroon. There may have been some Dominican tobaccos, but they left that all that filler as undisclosed. But a lot of problem with damage because authentic Cameroon is super thin. And when you lay Cameroon in a ceramic ashtray and you ship it, you have nothing but problems. So we had more damage than we had not damaged, and we had to send them all back.
Last question before I let you go. I always appreciate the time. I've learned that as I'm smoking a cigar, as I'm taking my second draw, because I'm an initial draw and then a secondary draw for the major smoke in, as I'm taking that second draw, I'm also rotating just maybe a quarter turn. I've noticed that I haven't had any burn issues with any cigar that I've had. Even when one side starts to track off, it does end up catching up after 2 or 3 more turns. Am I just lucky now, or if I caught something in the bottom?
No, this is so true. It's not why most people think, though. In ranger training, they teach a method of starting fire called the top-down method. So even though heat rises, the smoke suffocates the ember at the top. So why fires are tougher to start from the bottom is because the actual combustible material is being choked out by the smoke from the little fire below. When you do top-down method, you now have the embers falling and they have plenty of oxygen as they fall, and now you can catch up the rest. So the bottom of a cigar is always going to burn a little faster than the top because the smoke is choking out the ember at the top of the cylinder. So when you rotate it, you're rotating to get new combustible material all the time. So you may end up pausing and having a little run, and once you rotate and get that run to the top, the rest of it will catch up.
Bringing all the great premium hand-rolled cigar information as he does each and every visit, Mr. Jonathan. You can find him over at thecigarauthority.com, or if you want to buy cigars, the number 2, guyscigars.com. Mr. J, always appreciate the time, and we will look for you again soon.
Thank you so much, Greg.
You got it. Mr. J right there, bringing the premium cigar content on the premium hand-rolled cigar industry, as he always does, and we certainly appreciate the time that he gives to the show and makes us just a little bit wiser, a little bit more educated. So now you can go to your premium cigar retailers. There is a Aladino lounge, and I don't know why it's there. No offense, but it's in Greensburg, PA, and my daughter and my daughter's boyfriend are 5 minutes. I think it's like Nicholas Lagasta or whatever it's called. I follow him on the Instagram. So he's got 10 boxes coming in. I've already asked him to put a box aside. I'm going to chase Quentin down there and have him hold it till I get down there in a week or two to move them into the new apartment. But there's an Aladino Lounge in Greensburg, Pennsylvania. There could be one by you. They're getting the first crack at the Cameroon Reserves. So always appreciate Mr. J. Jared Drinkwater from Low and Slow will be coming up here shortly. Let's talk about Primo and their game-changing oval design. What do we love about ceramic cookers? We love that they're fuel efficient. We love that you can achieve low and slow temperatures for traditional barbecue meats. We love that you can get rip-roaring hot for the high-temperature grilling of steaks and other thin cuts. But what's missing in the everyday lineup of ceramic cookers? The real ability to do true two-zone cooking. Two-zone cooking, very important to both professionals and backyard cooks alike. It's the best way to manage a fire and cook with confidence. However, getting a two-zone fire in a round ceramic cooker is not very realistic. Why? Because it's round. Enter Primo Grill, the game-changing oval design. The shape gives you the ability to execute a two-zone setup that you desire. It also gives you the other ceramic grill benefits as well. When you break it down, there's more than 60 different ways to cook on the Primo cooker, so you're only limited by your culinary imagination. Yes, they have all the accessories that you want, and they're only sold through dealers. So you have to go to primogrill.com. If you don't know where the nearest dealer is to you, go to the dealer locator portion of the website, type in your zip code, and then find where it is. Go visit in person. Touch and feel all the ovals, and then take the one home that best fits your needs and your budget. I always recommend at least the XL because nobody has ever complained getting a grill that's just a little bit bigger. People have always complained about having a grill that's just a little bit too small. Should have got the bigger one. That's right, you should have. Here's the bottom line. Best ceramics in the biz, you know it. Patented technology, of course. True two-zone cooking capabilities with multiple sizes, yes and yes. Primogrill.com, again, sold through dealers. Visit on Facebook and Instagram. That's primogrill.com. Barbecue chips. But are they the standard or are they game-changing? You decide. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Barbecue Central Show. Howard Stern, Jim Rome, Dan Patrick, and Greg Rempe. The Mountain Rushmore of talk show entertainment. Now, let's get back to the Barbecue Central Show.
And we thank Mr. J for joining us last segment. This portion of the show being brought to you by Fireboard. Monitor up to 6 different temperatures simultaneously. Connect to Wi-Fi for cloud-based monitoring or via the Bluetooth. If you have smart speakers in your home, you're in luck. Fireboard fully integrated with most of those. You can ask your questions by calling 816-945-2232 or visit their website at fireboard.com. My next guest tonight is looking to change the snack game with his brand of smoked and seasoned potato chips, corn chips, and tortilla chips. If you have ever had a barbecue chip before and always felt underwhelmed with the result as I have, or you wish there was just more real barbecue flavor, then this might be the answer for you. So we welcome the CEO of Low and Slow Snacks, Jared Drinkwater, first-time guest. Jared, appreciate you joining the show here this evening. Before we get into the chip talk and all that good stuff, we have a YouTube poll question of the week that we're asking everybody, including all guests, which is this. You're going to watch the newest season of Barbecue Showdown on Netflix when it comes out, yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. Right, 68% of the YouTube voting public agreeing with you and our previous guests that yes, they will watch Netflix. Of course, I hate barbecue contest shows. I never got them, but that's just me, and maybe I'll force myself, but only under protest. Professional and personal background on a Jared Drinkwater before we get into Low and Slow chips.
Yeah, absolutely, and thanks for having me, Greg.
For sure.
So, professional background, I've been kind of in big consumer packaged goods marketing for my entire career, 25 plus years, and moved out to Dallas, Texas 20 years ago to work for Frito-Lay and kind of come full circle now launching a competitive snack brand. But, when I moved out here, it's almost impossible to not get kind of thrown into the barbecue world. If you live in Texas and don't smoke stuff, you're you're on the list for state deportation. And so I dove in significantly and just fell in love with barbecue culture. So kind of had these big marketing jobs all the way through my career, but always just a huge fan of barbecue. And about 4.5 years ago, had this crazy idea to create the first ever authentically smoked snack food. And really the insight for the idea was, you think about Texas barbecue, really barbecue all over the country, the least important aspect of an authentic experience is the sauce. And yet walk up and down the chip aisle and every single bag has a sauce ramekin on it and it has some flavor profile of sauce. And so I'm like, well, if you were going to make an authentic barbecue chip, what do you do? And the only answer to that is you got to smoke it. And so I took a bag of corn chips and I threw some rub that I had in my pantry on them, and I smoked them and I took them out, and the family loved it. And I said, has anyone ever done this before? And so I kind of walked up and down the aisle. The answer is no one's actually smoked it. And so I brought the idea to a good friend of mine who was at Frito-Lay. He ran global research and development at Frito-Lay he was there for 22 years. And he was retired, and I brought Mike a bag, and he opened the bag, and he could smell the smoke, and he's like, man, I tried to nail aroma at Frito for 15 plus years. I couldn't do it. This is really cool. And so literally we just, for about 2.5 years, tinkered in his backyard trying to figure out how we could create a scalable way to manufacture smoked chips at scale. And we cracked the code. And then I had to find someone crazy enough to smoke them for us, because we couldn't keep doing it in Mike's backyard and service Walmart. And so I got a lot of no's, but went around the country and found an incredible partner in Florida, convinced him to let us build a smoke room on his facility. So he makes the chips, and then we kind of bring them into our smoke room. We smoke them and bag them. And so this was really in earnest. The end of 2021, we made a serious run at it. I raised some money, and then I quit my job in May of 2022. And then it took about a year to get the smoke room operational. We actually introduced the brand for the first time to people at the Texas Barbecue World Fair in Lockhart, Texas, run by Texas Monthly. And we sold a bag a minute for 7 straight hours. And at that point, my wife looked at me and said, maybe you're not such an idiot for quitting a good job to start a chip company. And that's kind of the journey, Greg. We're kind of coming up on year 2 of being in market. We launched in H-E-B and Tom Thumb stores here in Texas, July of last year. We starting to kind of slowly make our way around the country. We're actually launching in Kansas City and St. Louis this week. We just launched into 301 Walmarts across Texas, and we've got our sites on Kentucky, Montana, Indiana, Nebraska. We'll ultimately get kind of all over the Midwest and South before we kind of go elsewhere. But that's kind of a long-winded way of kind of giving you the update on how we started the company and where we are today.
You're inside Frito-Lay. Do you never have a conversation with somebody at the chip company and say, hey, Don Frito, you guys are missing the boat. Luckily for you, not only am I marketing extraordinaire, but I'm the guy that's going to help you either launch a side brand or help you bring the real authentic smoked Frito chip to market. Does that never happen?
So in fairness, I haven't worked at Frito since 2014. So I am pretty far removed. I spent 7.5 years there. And then I went to Pizza Hut and then a big sports company, and then had this idea while I was at Varsity Brands, which is the largest supplier of sports equipment and apparel in the country. And so really got the idea off the ground in earnest during COVID when everyone was working from home and I had time to tinker and make phone calls. So I still have a ton of friends in Frito-Lay, respect that company, learned a ton from them. We're not even a blip on their radar yet. But yes, I did not have this idea while I was running marketing for Doritos.
How much research goes into the potato chip, the corn chip, and the tortilla chip that you end up putting in the bags to sell?
It's a great question. And I come from a world where literally it would take you a year and a half to make a decision on whether or not to shorten the bag length by half an inch. And now you're thrust into entrepreneurship world where you don't have a dollar of research money and you're going off asking buddies, talking to customers, and really just going off of your intuition. And so really the way we came up with our rub formula and then the ultimate recipe for our corn chips and our potato chips was just a ton of trial and error. And then really kind of bringing some barbecue folks in Texas under the fold and getting their responses and their feedback.
Are these names that we would know, these barbecue people?
You know, there are a few that you would know.
Does one's name rhyme with Schmerin Hanklin?
So it's really funny. Yes, Schmerin Hanklin did try our corn chips about 2.5 years ago. Yeah. Become friendly with the gentleman who has run his smoking business venture and actually the former CEO of Stubbs Barbecue. Amazing guy who actually connected us, Greg, Matt.
Yep.
And so I sent Matt a few bags of corn chips, and supposedly Mr. Franklin served them on chili that he had at a barbecue a barbecue Super Bowl party back in February. God, this must have been 2021. So, you know, a lot of those guys have tried us. There's a handful of barbecue influencers that have just been so incredibly supportive for our journey. A gentleman by the name of Josh Hunt. Josh Hunt Griddlin is his Instagram handle. He's been kind of a supporter from day one, an ambassador for Traeger, did a lot of stuff for Blackstone, has his own cookbook out there. He's been an amazing friend and advisor. And I've gotten to know, you know, probably 25 of the top 50 pitmasters in Texas just over the last 2 years doing barbecue festivals and networking. And so it's been, you know, those folks that have really given me a lot of good feedback and positive feedback that we're on the right track, because really building the brand for them first. If a pitmaster likes it, then I think that we got a shot.
From the smoking standpoint, once you decide on the cut of chip or the cut of corn chip or tortilla chip, I assume it goes into some kind of a conveyor belt or some type of a, like you said, you've built some kind of a smoke house, if you will. I'm familiar kind of with what that happens like in jerky world. Maybe it's something similar to that. So you go through a testing process where you say, okay, we're going to put a batch of potato chips in and we're going to put smoke on them for 5 minutes. And then the next round is at 10 minutes, and then the next round is at 20 minutes. How does the right smoke aroma or the right smoke flavor get put on the chips, and how much of a process is that across the chip line?
Yeah, so, you know, first and foremost, I mean, it was a ton of tinkering and trial and error. So even though we kind of nailed it in Mike's backyard, when you're doing a couple pounds of potato chips in a seasoning tumbler and then trying to crank, you know, 1,000 pounds an hour through a big smoker is completely different. Yep. And so it took a ton of trial and error. The interesting thing for our product, Greg, is that it's a very fine line between not enough smoke and too much smoke. Mm-hmm. We want it to, you know, we need it to be just right. And that's a matter of seconds, not minutes, potentially. And so for us, we want the smoke aroma to be there. We want you to taste the smoke, but just like a brisket, I mean, if I ate a piece of brisket and all I could taste was kind of bitter oak or smoke or mesquite or whatever you're smoking your meat with, and it was too bitter, you know, you'd eat 1 or 2 bites and then put it away. And so at the beginning, we actually over smoked the product to the point where it was almost like a cigarette-y taste. And that's obviously something you want to avoid. Yeah. So yeah, we kind of fry our chips like you would make a regular potato chip. We put our rub on them. We run them through a huge smoker that never existed, so it's kind of nothing you can buy in Ace Hardware or Home Depot. I mean, we fabricated a bunch of equipment specialized for this, and it works. And so we're still learning every day. I mean, the tough part is, you know, hosting this show and knowing a lot about barbecue is that you're dealing with live fire and science. And so the atmosphere, the weather conditions, how humid is it in your smoke room, all that stuff goes into how good and consistent your product is. And unlike every other snack food brand that can basically make the same exact tasting chip every single time, we're still honing in on our craft there.
Texas is a pretty proud state. You end up manufacturing these in Florida. Was Texas not an option?
Texas was not an option.
Really?
And the reason being is that the majority of chip production facilities in Texas are either owned by retailers that only do their own private label or Frito-Lay.
Right.
And Frito-Lay certainly wasn't going to make them for us. And the retailers weren't either. And so I had a couple conversations with some smaller companies, but nothing really materialized. I mean, it took kind of someone that shared my vision for how unique this was going to be to give us a shot, because when you add kind of a proprietary process that has live fire and smoke included, a lot of people get scared away by that. And our partners in Florida dove right in with us and really helped us build the process that we've created today.
Is it all warehoused?
People are pretty cool about it.
Yeah. Is it all warehoused and shipped out of there as well, or does it have to make one leg of transport back to Texas before it gets shipped out?
So, everything gets shipped out from a warehouse in Florida. Mm-hmm. I've got a small warehouse in Farmers Branch, Texas, which is right outside of Dallas, and always have product on hand. I fulfill all of our e-commerce orders today and send out samples to retailers and barbecue influencers from there. And then, the shipments all leave from Florida to wherever they need to go.
I was just trying to think of this great follow-up question that I'm not going to think of at this point, but that's all right. Aside from the existing product line, potato chip, corn chip, and tortilla chip, which, by the way, is sold out online, so those must be very popular. Anything else on the horizon, or are we going to stick with this core group and ride for a little while?
Well, I got to tell you, and I'm an open book here. We say sold out on the website. I just haven't updated it yet. We stopped selling tortilla chips.
Oh, all right.
And the reason being, not that people didn't love the product, but we launched everything in a 5 or a 6 ounce bag. And what we learned pretty quickly is that a 5 ounce bag of tortilla chips is in no man's land, because everyone's buying huge bags for $3 for parties. And so we will retool that product. We're already tinkering with some new rubs that I think would be really good. It was awesome making nachos with those things. Your kitchen would smell like a smoke room because you'd put them in the oven and the smoke would just kind of exude from the chip. So we'll be back. So right now we're rolling with corn chips and potato chips, and we actually are getting ready to launch barbecue smoked cheese puff at the end of August, early September. That has gotten rave reviews. We actually debuted it at a salty snack trade show, and then I sampled it at the Troubadour Barbecue Festival in College Station last month, and people were digging it. So I'm really excited about that one.
How often are you on the road?
A lot, man.
Yeah.
Brand new company is it's hand-to-hand combat. No marketing budget. If you're not out there selling every day, no one's going to do it for you. And so what I'm trying to do is kind of get on the road. I always have chips in my trunk, and I'll give them to anybody that'll strike up a conversation with me. Not to the point where I'm like super annoying about it, but you always have to be selling your brand. Yeah. We do a lot of barbecue festivals because that's the connection we want to have. What other salty snack company can show up to Memphis in May authentically and give away product? And so as we start to kind of plant seeds around the country as we leave Texas. You'll see us in other markets. So we did sample at Memphis in May. We actually became the unofficial salty snack of their VIP room because the dude running the VIP room tried a bag and loved it, and so we gave him a bunch of sample bags for everyone back there. We were at Barbecue Fest at GEHA Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City this past weekend. I met some wonderful folks from the Kansas City barbecue community there, and we launch in about 170 stores across Kansas City and St. Louis this week. So my whole goal is to really create a barbecue brand first, chip brand second, and the only way you can do that is if you show up to these events and kind of act as close to a pitmaster as you can be. I like to say we're a barbecue joint that smokes chips instead of meat.
Where do you see it in 2 years?
Well, in 2 years, I hope to see it in a lot more places than it is today. And that'll be determined by, obviously us striking up relationships with distributors and retailers. But I see us in a couple years almost redefining a subcategory in salty snacks. And so when you walk up and down the chip aisle, a lot of grocery stores will merchandise things by product line. So you got all the pretzels together, all the tortilla chips together, the potato chips together. Yep. And one day, whether that's 2 years, 5 years, 10 years from now, I'd love to create the smoked section and have a 6-foot plot of land in every salty snack aisle in the country that basically is your source for authentic barbecue snacks. And so we have smoked every salty snack literally on the planet. The only one we couldn't figure out initially was pretzels because the smoke was having a really hard time absorbing to like a pretzel rod or a heart. And so we cracked that code by using pretzel pieces. And so you'll see us come out with all different kinds of sub-products within the salty snack world. So our innovation will span products, it'll span wood. So right now we smoke everything with hickory, but we're looking at bourbon oak, we're looking at cherry wood, oak and pecan, because we're not smoking for 18 hours or a little bit too subtle, but we're gonna have a lot of fun with different limited time only woods, and really love this idea of this bourbon oak. I mean, we've smoked stuff with that. The alcohol taste is almost too much, so we're kind of playing around with that a little bit. And then it's rubs. And so, again, we never call it a seasoning. We're a barbecue company, so they're rubs, but I get all my inspiration from my backyard in trying different rubs and glazes and sauces. And really, you'll see your non-traditional barbecue seasonings kind of take flight on our line moving forward.
So would you potentially see the option of, or the potential of, the low and slow barbecue chip Sweet Money version by Big Papa Smokers and Low and Slow collaborating, or Meat Church or Rio Valley Meat or Meat Mitch, or all these big rub companies? Is that something that you're potentially looking at, or does that get a little weird?
No, not weird at all. I mean, the fascinating thing about barbecue, you rattled off names that I know, but it's so regional that there's no like one famous national authority for barbecue. Matt Pittman is a wonderful guy. I've gotten to know him with Meat Church. He's got an unbelievable following, and I just really admire how he's built his business. And, so yes, doors are always open for collaborations. It would just need to make sense on kind of more of a national level for us to consider it. It gets really hard to do regional flavors on chips when you're trying to distribute nationally. It doesn't mean you can't do it. I just remember at Frito-Lay, like when we tried to do NFL packaging in every team market, it was like a supply chain disaster. Yeah. So, we're going to try to keep it a little one size fits all to start as we expand across the country, but love thinking about those collaborations. Aspirationally, figuring out a way to collaborate with Yeti or Traeger or some of these barbecue brands that you wouldn't necessarily associate with a snack food brand. I think if we build things the right way, we might have a lot to offer them one day, and certainly they're incredible national brands.
Let's say in 2 years, last question, and I appreciate the time here. you're exceeding your wildest expectation. And here comes Frito-Lay walking into the door, and they're like, Jared, let's have a meeting here. We see you really starting to dominate this new category. Congratulations on being a visionary. We're going to stroke you this check. We're going to buy it. You're going to walk away and buy a yacht and be happy. Interested in that?
Well, I'd be lying if I didn't think about that, but it's certainly not on my mind right now because I got to figure out how to get chips in somebody's shopping cart first and foremost. And so for us, I think if we build something special, people love the product, we carve out a really cool niche in barbecue and snack food. Is not a niche. I mean, it's the third biggest flavor profile in all of snacks, followed by cheese and hot. So, man, you know, if we're having that conversation one day, Greg, it would be pretty neat, but I try not to really think about that too much because there is so much work ahead of us.
Busy guy talking about the genesis of Low and Slow. And by the way, what a great website you were able to snag, lowandSlow.com. It doesn't get any easier than that. Very good. So congratulations on getting that website. If you're interested, hit the website, buy them up. You're available for retail right there online, e-commerce. And as Jared was talking about, slowly and actually quickly rolling out here across regions and nations. Jared, appreciate the time here this evening. Also appreciate the sample chips that I got. They're very good. They played very well in the house. And this is a discerning and, should I say, snobbery barbecue household. So passing the test here, I'm not saying that's your definite gauge for success and ultimate multi-millionairesmanship, but certainly isn't a knock against, that's for sure. So continued success, and I appreciate you coming on tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. Great to talk to you.
Jared Drinkwater right there. Lowandslow.com is the website if you would like to check them out. And then buy it up. You can get a box. Comes in a nice box. Comes in a nice box like this. A couple bags of each. Both the tortilla and the potato chip. Here's what I'm going to say. If you don't like traditional barbecue chips, then try this. If you like traditional barbecue chips, this will be a separator. This will be different. I'm not going to say for your palate in a good or bad way, especially if you like the current barbecue chip availability. I think it's kind of trash. This was different in a good way. So check it out. Lowandslow.com, and we'll be back to wrap up the first hour right after this. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Continuing to produce incredibly mediocre content in an exceptionally professional way. You're listening and watching the Barbecue Central Show. Once again, here's your host, Greg Rempe.
And we thank Jared Drinkwater for joining us last segment. Lowandslow.com if you want to follow him on social. Instagram, Low and Slow Snacks, all one word. At Low and Slow Snacks, all spelled out. And again, good change of pace or good differentiation between what's currently available, like in your Lay's and Frito-Lay, whatever. Maybe that's Lay's. I don't know. You know the chip brands that all have barbecue flavoring. Trash. And I think probably unhealthy, and I have no way to prove that, and the lawsuit will show that next week. The chip. I'm not a big corn chip guy, but these are good. The chip integrity. I think you'll be shocked. It's not a massively thick cut chip, but this is a sturdy chip. By the way, if Aaron Franklin is eating your corn chips and then using them on purpose to put on top of a chili, that's a good thing. And of course, his name is Aaron Schmanklin. No names, please, as we say on the show. All right, we're pointing to the second hour, refresh your libations, and we'll be back. We're a little over, so we'll catch up on the clock, and then we'll have the embedded correspondence. You are listening and watching the Barbecue Central show right here on the Barbecue Central Network. Stick around. We'll be right back.